Hey, I wanted to get into the Jon Fitch fight because I think we talked about this being a great card. But that fight, again, it was Jon Fitch, winning, dominating, top control. Yeah, I can see it. A little bit of a yawner. It's his 5th straight decision win. And I got to tell you, one of the first things I thought of was, I don't know if he gets the next title shot against the GSP Koscheck winner.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think going into that fight, no doubt about it. And you look, it's an incredible record he has. He's won 5 in a row. He's won 21 out of 22, the only loss to George St. Pierre, and yet there's a big debate in the community whether he should get a title shot. That tells you that, he's just not, he's not an exciting fighter, and people are, this is a business and people pay to see you fight. And, he's just not taking it to the next level. That's a disappointment. I think Jon's accomplishments are great. He's beating great people. It's just not in an attractive way. And kind of like in a boxing version of Corey Spinks. At his prime, Corey was one that would beat you backwards. He would just make you look bad, but he wouldn't do anything to penalize you, or maybe to even a greater degree, Pernell Whitaker. Yep. And that's, kind of what Jon Fitch does. He just kind of takes you down. He kind of grabs your back. He doesn't go for chokes. He just holds position, kind of mauls you a little bit on the ground, but he's not delivering the punishment. You think of what Sonnen did to Silva. You think of what Johnny Jones does. You think of what Randy Couture's made a history of doing. They're all wrestlers. They get you down and they beat on you. And Jon Fitch doesn't really do that, and I think that's the difference, and that's what people are upset about. Hey, we don't mind you taking him down, but once you take him down, do something with that position, throw some punches, throw some elbows, kind of make the guy know that, he's in a fight. Basically, other than getting flung down, Thiago Alves didn't look any worse for wear when he walked out of the cage.
And I think Alves was there for the taking, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I agree. Dana made a great point at the post-fight press conference. He said Alves can't make 170 anymore. He talked about, how he looked lethargic and didn't have that. And I think that was true. And so that's kind of a knock, without saying it, a knock on Fitch, because he wasn't himself. He wasn't, fresh. He wasn't explosive like he normally is, and Fitch couldn't finish him. And Fitch didn't ever really even have him in jeopardy. He just took him down and kind of held him down. Hey, it was a great wrestling match, a great wrestling performance, but it wasn't a great fight.
In some ways, you almost wonder, just to get Fitch out of the division, if the UFC is rooting for a little drama to have Koscheck beat GSP. I'll tell you, I know Dana made a point again during the press conference where he's like, well, Fitch isn't saying that he won't fight Koscheck. To me, he said it. I don't think he's changing his mind. I don't think they're willing to fight each other, and maybe it unfolds nicely for them, but he's fooling himself into believing that if Koscheck wins, Fitch is going to fight him.
Well, he said to Dave Meltzer in a call. Dave went to lunch with him a week before the fight, and our colleague at Yahoo Sports, and who does a great job. Dave had lunch with Jon Fitch, and Jon Fitch said if he wins, he's going to go up to and Koscheck wins, he's going to go up to 185. He's not going to fight. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we'll see a Koscheck Fitch fight. Maybe GSP, or probably GSP, will have a lot to say about that, and we won't have to worry. But I think Jon, if he gets the title shot, I think there's going to be a big burden on him, because he's going to have to answer some tough questions. There was so much Saturday night with Sonnen and Silva that, Fitch kind of fell to the background once the two main event fighters got in. I think Jon escaped a little bit some of the wrath, but I don't think he's got people, clamoring to see him. There's no doubt about that. And a fight with George St. Pierre, who to some degree is similar. George takes guys down and does the same thing. At least George works for submissions. He got criticized against Dan Hardy, but let's compare George's fight against Dan Hardy to Fitch's fight against Alves. Hardy didn't tap to arm bars and kimuras, and I can't remember what else George had on, but I know that Dan Hardy showed a lot of toughness because George put him through the ringer of submission moves. When did Fitch ever do anything like that? Never. And, and that's been typical with Jon. I think Jon, needs to look at those tapes, needs to read and listen to some of the criticism. And
we agree, though, that GSP, he's the favorite. He'll probably win against Koscheck. So then we are presented with the scenario of who gets George St. Pierre sometime in 2011. I got to tell you, I think the fight between Shields and Campman, the door is wide open. Now, here's the possibility, though, is that
Yeah.
Shields has a lay.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, Shields has a lay and pray. That's kind of boring, and he outpoints Campman, and then all of a sudden the promotion is like, uh-oh, what do we do? The new guy who is a wrestler and wants top control, or the older guy who's already had a shot?
Well, I mean, in all due respect to Jake Shields, I think he's a terrific fighter, and I think he's going to beat Martin Kampmann when they fight. But having said that, Jon Fitch has earned it. Jon Fitch is a similar fighter to Jake, and Jon Fitch has now won 5 in a row, 21 out of 22. He's beaten elite guys. He's beaten better competition, even if we assume if we give Shields today, weeks before they fight, a win over Martin Kampmann, I think, even given that, Fitch has a better record in terms of victories over top opponents than Jake does, and I think he deserves the shot. But you're right, both guys are going to be similar. I don't see much of a difference between a Fitch GSP fight or a Shields GSP fight, just the fact that it would be a different face in there.
Yep. And don't get me wrong, because the guy who is going to potentially beat GSP is going to have to be someone who can wrestle, and it's going to have to stay on the feet. And then at that point, you're rolling the dice because GSP is dynamite on the feet. But at least it has a chance, whether it's, because you're going to see Koscheck next, but whether it's Shields or Fitch, to stay on the feet because they thwart each other wrestling-wise. Because you really, for the next couple of fights, you can't put GSP in with guys who basically can tackle.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, at that point, they're going to be, a stalemate on the ground, I would think. And so, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you have to have somebody that has that ability. Somebody like BJ Penn, if BJ was a 170, and I just don't believe BJ's big enough, but BJ has the kind of style. He's terrific on his feet, and he's got the jiu-jitsu. He's got the takedown defense, the jiu-jitsu, and the stand-up that he would be the guy to beat George St. Pierre if there was a 170-pound version of BJ. And I know that there's not too many BJ Penns in the world, but that would be the guy that you would want to see fight George St. Pierre to give him his biggest test.
Well, maybe George will piss off Chael Sonnen in the next couple of months. And Chael mentioned during the press conference, right, that he'll go anywhere for a title. If he has to diet down to go after Jose Aldo, he'll do it.
Yeah, I think it might be a little rough to make that cut. But, hey, Thiago Alves does it. Maybe Chael can pull it too.
All right, Kev. Thanks, man.